I fell in love with the most notorious boy in my school, the one everyone warned me about. Honestly, I still don't know how it happened. I was supposed to be the smart one, the girl with the perfect future, and he was supposed to be the guy who ended up behind bars. I spent my whole life calculating every move, but I never calculated for a variable like Jax Miller. In my old school, I was the girl who never lost. My name was always at the top of the list, printed in bold on every honor roll and trophy. To me, life was a series of predictable equations. If you work hard, you win. If you follow the rules, you succeed. If you stay in the lines, you never get lost. It was a simple, safe way to live. But when I transferred to St. Jude's Academy, the first thing I learned was that the real world doesn't care about my perfect record. St. Jude's was a place of high walls and even higher expectations. It was a school for the elite, the sons and daughters of politicians and CEOs. But it had a shadow, a group of students they called the basement boys. They were the kids on the fringe, the ones who didn't fit into the polished aesthetic of the academy. And at the center of that shadow was Jax. Elena, listened to me, my new friend Sarah whispered on my very first day as we watched a matte black muscle car roar into the school parking lot, vibrating the very ground beneath our feet. Stay away from Jax Miller. He's been suspended for fighting. He races cars illegally downtown, and he's dangerous. He's the variable that ruins every equation he touches. The principal has been trying to find a reason to expel him for years. Just stay in the lab, focus on your scholarship, and don't even look his way. I looked at him anyway. Jax was leaning against the hood of that car, wearing a worn leather jacket, his dark hair messy and his eyes shielded by sunglasses. He looked like a storm that was waiting to happen. To me, he was just a cliché, a boy who used a loud car and a bad attitude to hide the fact that he was failing at life. I dismissed him instantly. I was here to be the best, and a boy like Jax Miller wasn't even on my radar. But a week later, everything changed. Our first major physics exam results were being posted. I walked down the hall with my usual confidence, already imagining the 100% in red ink next to my name. I pushed through the crowd of students, but as I reached the bulletin board, the air left my lungs. Rank 2, Elena Vance, 98%. I had never been second. Never. My vision blurred as I looked at the name at the very top of the list. Rank 1, Jax Miller, 100%. The hall went silent around me. People were whispering, pointing. Jax, the guy who slept through every lecture, the guy who spent his afternoons in detention or under the hood of a car. He hadn't just beaten me. He had aced a test that the teachers said was designed to be impossible to perfect. No way, I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of shock and ego. He'd cheated. He had to have cheated. I don't need to cheat to beat you, Elena, a raspy voice said from right behind my ear. I turned around, my heart racing. Jax was standing there, his sunglasses pushed up into his hair, looking incredibly bored. You follow the rules too much, he said, stepping into my personal space. The smell of gasoline and peppermint clung to him. You calculate for the world as it's written in books, a world without wind, without friction, without mistakes. But the real world is messy. It's full of heat and noise. You're so busy being a perfect student that you've forgotten how to actually be a scientist. I hated him instantly. From that moment on, it was war. I became obsessed with proving that I was better. I spent every night in the school library pushing myself to the limit. I watched him constantly, waiting for him to slip up. I watched him get into a fight behind the gym. I watched him get sent to the principal's office for the third time in a month. And I watched him roar away in that black car every Friday. He was everything I was taught to avoid, yet I couldn't stop looking for him. The turning point happened on a Friday night that I will never forget. A massive autumn storm had hit the city and the school was nearly empty. I had stayed late in the advanced physics lab, working on my final project, a complex particle accelerator model I had been building for months. It was my ticket to a full scholarship at MIT. My only way to escape the pressure of my parents' expectations. Suddenly the lights flickered and died. The school was plunged into a heavy, suffocating darkness. Then, a terrifying metallic crash echoed through the room. A massive storage shelf had buckled under the weight of old textbooks, and as it fell, it slammed directly into my project table. I scrambled in the dark, my hands shaking as I turned on my phone's flashlight, my heart shattered. My project, the work of 6 months, was lying in pieces on the floor. Twisted copper, broken glass, and months of my life, all ruined. I sat on the floor in the dark and cried. I didn't care about being strong or perfect anymore. I felt like the universe was telling me that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how many rules I followed, everything could still fall apart. The alignment on the primary coil was off anyway. I jumped, dropping my phone. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the doorway. Jax was standing there, his leather jacket dripping with rain, his hair plastered to his forehead. "Go away, Jax," I sobbed, shielding my eyes. "Come to laugh? Go ahead. It's broken. I'm done. You win." Jax didn't laugh. He walked into the room, his boots clicking on the floor, and knelt down in the wreckage. "I'm not laughing," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "I'm telling you the truth. Your machine was too rigid, Elena. You built it to work in a perfect world, but the moment things got shaky, it snapped. It needed room to breathe. It needed to account for the chaos." He sat down on the floor next to me and pulled a small professional toolkit from his jacket. "I spend my nights rebuilding engines that were left for dead on the side of the road," he said. "I know how to fix things that the world thinks are broken." For the next 5 hours, the world outside that lab didn't exist. Jax didn't mock me. He didn't act like the notorious boy everyone was afraid of. Instead, he worked with a level of focus and brilliance I had never seen in a classroom. He didn't use a calculator. He used his hands. He explained that life isn't about being perfect. It's about how you handle the pressure. "See this?" he asked, pointing to a copper wire he was carefully bending. "If you make it too tight, the heat will snap it. You have to give it a little slack. Physics isn't just about math, Elena. It's about understanding how things feel when they're pushed to their limit." "Why?" I asked as we finally got the main frame of the machine back together. "Why do you let everyone think you're just a delinquent? You're smarter than anyone in this building." Jax looked at the floor, the light from his flashlight casting long shadows on his face. "My dad was a genius. He followed every rule, took every title, gave his whole life to the university. But when he got sick, they threw him away like a broken part. They didn't care about his prestige once he stopped being useful." He looked at me, and his amber eyes were full of a deep, hidden pain. "I don't want their titles, Elena. I don't want to be their star student. I just want to understand the world on my own terms. I get the top grades just to remind myself that I'm better than their system, but I don't give them the satisfaction of seeing me try." I realized then that the bad boy everyone warned me about was actually the only person who understood what it felt like to live with a heart under high pressure. After that night, we became a secret. During the day, I was still the girl in the front row, and he was the boy in the back row sleeping. But at night, we met at an old, abandoned warehouse by the docks where he kept his car. He taught me how to drive, really drive. He taught me how to feel the centripetal force in a sharp turn, how to trust my instincts over my calculations. In return, I helped him with the complex theoretical math he needed to make his car reach speeds that should have been physically impossible. I learned that the fights he got into were always to protect the younger kids in his neighborhood from the actual gangs. He let everyone call him the villain because it was easier than letting them see how much he cared. He was a hero in a leather jacket, and I was falling for him with a force that defied all the laws of gravity. But as the National Physics Olympiad approached, the school board began to grow suspicious. The principal called me into his office, the air smelling of old paper and cold coffee. "Elena," he said, staring at me over his glasses, "we've seen you at the docks with Jax Miller. I'm going to be very clear. Jax is a liability. He represents everything this academy stands against. If you are associated with him, your scholarship will be revoked. We will not have our top student linked to a common street racer. Choose your future, Elena. Or choose him." I felt a coldness spread through my chest. That night I went to the warehouse. Jax was sitting on the hood of his car, looking at the stars. He didn't even have to look at me to know what happened. "They're going to disqualify me, aren't they?" he asked quietly. "Jax, we can tell them the truth," I said, stepping toward him. "We can tell them about the lab, about how you helped me, about who you really are." "No," he said, hopping down and taking my hands. His fingers were rough, but his touch was the gentlest thing I had ever felt. If you defend me, you lose MIT. You lose everything you've worked for since you were a kid. I'm not going to let you break your life for me. You're the person who taught me how to see the stars, I shouted. I don't care about a scholarship if it means I have to lie about the best person I've ever met. I care, he said. He leaned in and kissed me. A kiss that felt like a spark jumping a gap, a sudden release of all the built-up tension of the last few months. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever experienced. Go win that competition, Elena, for both of us. Prove to them that you're the best, with or without me. The day of the competition, Jax was suspended on a fake charge of reckless behavior on school grounds. I walked onto that stage alone. I looked at the judges, the professors, and the principal who sat in the front row, smiling like he had already won. When it was my turn to present my particle accelerator, I didn't read from my prepared notes. I looked at the crowd and I thought about the boy in the warehouse. This project wasn't built by a perfect student, I said, my voice echoing through the hall. It was built by two people, one who knew all the formulas, and one who was brave enough to show her that formulas don't mean anything if you're afraid of the friction. The real genius behind this machine isn't in this room today, because you were too afraid of his potential to let him in. The room was deathly silent. I spent the next 10 minutes explaining the illegal physics Jax had taught me, the raw, beautiful, real-world science of a boy they had tried to silence. I was disqualified immediately. I lost my scholarship. I lost my guaranteed path to the elite universities. I lost the perfect future my parents had designed for me. I walked out to the parking lot, and the matte black car was waiting. Jax was leaning against it, a crooked, proud smile on his face. "You're a real idiot, Elena Vance," he said, but his eyes were shining with a light I had never seen before. "I calculated the risk," I said, walking into his arms and never wanting to let go. "And you were the only result that mattered. I learned that life isn't a problem to be solved. It's not about being first or second. It's about the people who help you fix the pieces when the shelves come crashing down. I chose the notorious boy everyone warned me about, and in the end, he was the only thing in my life that was actually real. I'm sharing this because sometimes the people who seem the most broken or the most dangerous are the ones who actually know how the world works. If this story made you believe that love is the one equation you shouldn't try to solve, please leave a like and comment the word genius below. It lets me know you stayed until the end and that you understand why I did what I did. If you've ever fallen for the person you were supposed to avoid, tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep emotional journeys like this one. Thank you for listening. And remember, the most important lessons in life are usually the ones that aren't found in a textbook.